If you take a look at Florida State's depth chart, and then you look at the guys that were available on the field at wide receiver, this is something, Ira, that's just worth reflecting on. And so let's post that now. Here's Florida State's depth chart from this week for Pitt. We got some color codes going on here, folks. There you go. Everybody likes color codes. It makes everything neat and a nice visual aid. But look at Florida State's wide receiver situation. And you see that we all know who was out in terms of the stars, Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. They talked about it every 5 seconds, like it was Jabril Peppers back in the day for the Orange Bowl. But Hakeem Williams was not available in this game. Ira, Deuce Spann didn't take a snap that I'm aware of. And when I saw Rodney Hill take the opening kickoff back, I thought, where the hell's number 5? Destin Hill was clearly limited by injury. You reported after, and I got to apologize to Kentron here because in the postgame show before you showed up, Ira, I said, this is a missed opportunity for 88. All these guys are out and you don't take advantage of it. Well, Kentron was limited by injury per Mike Norvell in his postgame. So the two guys in green, Ja'Kai Douglas, Darion Williamson, Vandrevius Jacobs is not listed on the depth chart, but he had a catch in this game. He also drew a targeting foul. That's who Jordan Travis was working with at wide receiver. You want to make an argument for this quarterback to be in the Heisman discussion? How about looking at that depth chart, who's available and who's not available, and then look at those totals. 22 of 36 for 360 yards and a score. Ira, this is an incredibly impressive day for Jordan Travis on the heels of what I thought to be his most impressive passing performance against Wake Forest. He's going to a different level, an even higher level, I think.
Yeah, that's a game where if you don't have an elite quarterback, there's a good chance you're not going to win that game because you don't what you lose with Keon and Johnny, and it's very apparent when you get into that game, is the catch radius is such a big deal. And so now, man, the quarterback has to be pinpoint accuracy, and those guys aren't going to be able to hold their position as well when they're getting jostled by defensive backs. There's just a lot of reasons you want those big-bodied receivers, and so you didn't have them. And Florida State had to really use their whole complement of weapons. I mean, you saw the tight ends get real active again, a lot of the screen game again, and then he started connecting with Ja'Kai. I mean, a couple of those passes to Ja'Kai were just awesome. Ja'Kai made a couple of tough catches, at least one or two over the middle where he knew he was going to get hit. It was awesome, man. If he doesn't come through there, I don't know. I mean, and he didn't have a touchdown, 6 catches, 115 yards and no touchdowns. But, man, he came through when it felt like, man, they're going to have a hard time moving the ball because Pitt was selling out to stop the run. I mean, after, I don't know, maybe 2 plays into the game, whatever it was, they realized that both Keon and Johnny were out. I mean, it was 9, 10 guys, sometimes 11 guys, all basically in the box. And, they had to throw the ball, and Jordan got it done.
Yeah, personally for me, I think Florida State's offensive line is Power 5 average at best in terms of run blocking, especially the way they want to block it up like last year's scheme. They're average at that. They're much better in pass protection than they are run blocking. And so when you don't have receivers and you need to run the ball to a degree, and Pitt knows that it can stack 8 or 9 guys around the line of scrimmage routinely, that's a hell of a matchup in that situation for Pitt. So what happens is you have to have a player rise above it all. And you could kind of see it, Ira, on the TV broadcast. I wonder if maybe some of the mannerisms on the sidelines, you could catch that in the stadium. Yeah. But it seemed like as we got from drive 2 to drive 3 to drive 4, Jordan was getting his arms around the situation, thinking you could see it on his face like, okay, I'm going to have to go to this other place today. And he didn't even really do it with his legs. He had to go to this other place with his arm talent, with his accuracy to dudes who aren't trees on the perimeter, to smaller type guys or some of his other targets over the middle of the field.
And he did have some frustration early. And I don't know if he caught it on camera or not, but there were a couple of those drives, like when they got stopped on the 4th down, I think, and a couple of times where he came off and you could tell he was he didn't like maybe the play calls. He didn't like the execution. He was frustrated about just how things were going. And there was at least one time where basically Alex Elisami, the student assistant for the quarterbacks, kind of went over to him and was kind of getting him on the headset. And they were not calming him down, but just kind of like just reminding him that, like, man, you're the guy. Like, you have to carry us through this. And it seemed like there was a period there where Pitt had the ball for a little while, or maybe there's a timeout, but they were on the sideline for a good long while. It wasn't one of those where, because what was happening early is their drive would end and then the defense would kind of get them right back on the field. And they never really got their composure. But there's one possession where it felt like Jordan was over there for a while, and I watched him on the sideline and he started kind of joking around with guys, and you could tell he was kind of maybe just he kind of recalibrated,
Mhm.
and to use Mario Cristobal's word, and I just felt like he was kind of found that place, and then you started seeing them play much better overall.
Yeah, this is just a trial that you couldn't have drawn up in the preseason, given where Florida State's offense looked to be on paper. And again, if Hakeem Williams is 100% available, Ira, they're not in the situation. If
Could have been a huge game for him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kentron, Destin, like if any of them, I feel like this is when who was it? Was it Gene Chiswick showed up? And any of them had been available, you're probably in a different situation. Vandrevius Jacobs came out in the first half and made a big catch to move the chains in a huge spot. He was clearly the first read that Jordan saw, but that's how far down the depth chart they were willing to go. They had to go in this game. And again, it's not like one of those days where Jordan throws for 300 and runs for 85 and 2 scores. This had to be on his arm. And I get they only scored 24 points, Ira, but when you are this type of a quarterback, an elite player, some days you just got to put the team on your back. He did it last year against Florida when there were drops galore and the offensive line couldn't block it up for him. This, to me, was another one of those examples where if Florida State faces some sort of serious adversity against Florida on the road or in the ACC championship game or maybe in the playoff, Jordan can look back on a moment like this, draw on this, and it could help him power through, because
Yeah.
this was a giant test of attrition yesterday.
Yeah, and I thought, and the other thing that was kind of a throwback, again, so much of that game felt like we were back in 2020 or 2021 in terms of, man, you don't have the big studs at receiver, and your offensive line's going to be, because that's how teams were playing Florida State before Johnny showed up,
Yep.
and certainly before Keon showed up. Teams were just stacking the box, saying, Jordan, you're not going to beat us with your legs, and you don't have receivers that can beat us. So we're going to press them. We're not going to let you throw underneath. And that was the challenge every week. And Mike Norvell would have to scheme things up. He and Kenny Dillingham would have to scheme things up, finding ways to move the ball through the air. And you saw them do a little bit of that yesterday. I mean, they got creative a few times. And I know some people don't like some of the cute plays, the flea flicker or whatever. But, the pass to Marquise Douglas is an incredibly well drawn up play. They get basically a free touchdown, a 20-yard touchdown. And so they did. So it was kind of a throwback in that way as well, where I felt like Norvell and Atkins kind of, schemed up some things to help out.